Hello, I'm Kat Curry-Williams.
And I'm Robin Radin.
And this is Wine, Women, and Chocolate.
And we are so excited about our guest today, and you should be too, because she is a psychic medium. She's helped countless people connect with deceased loved ones. She's the author of a best-selling memoir and has studied the evidence of survival of the conscious mind. Please welcome Marla Frees.
Welcome,
Hello.
Marla.
Hello,
Toast to you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much for being here.
And this is an early morning shoot. That's all you have to know about it. So we decided that champagne would be what we would sip behind. And what I love about a mimosa is that it was created in 1920, 21. There's a thing whether it was from the bar, it's Fritz's thing.
Whatever, in Paris, in London.
But the interesting thing is, they made it so gentlemen could drink before lunch. That was the conceit of it. But they also got it famous here in Alfred Hitchcock.
Alfred Hitchcock made it famous.
That sounds great.
So we'll drink to the women who like it better.
You made us wait so long for that sip. It was worth it.
Yeah, good memories with that.
It was. Well, you're just doing the straight champagne, so you really got it going.
Yeah, she didn't have to wait for the morning drinks. So, Marla.
Marla is here, and we have to start at the very beginning, which is because, I've interviewed psychic mediums before, and I always wonder, what was it like the first time you realized you had this ability? Like, what was that moment like?
Well, the first thing was the psychic part when I was 8 years old. And I was waiting for my girlfriend across the street with her mother in the kitchen. And we were talking about something because it was getting ready for Thanksgiving. And she plopped a bowl in front of me to break up some bread. And I started breaking up the bread. And all of a sudden, I couldn't see the bowl anymore. My mind went to a parking lot at the hospital and saw the woman, Anne, her boyfriend, talking to a nurse. And it was as though I was eavesdropping in on their conversation. And he was talking about, I don't want to be with Anne anymore, and I certainly don't want to buy her a present for Christmas. And it was on, and it stopped. I saw the bread again and said to Anne, the woman, your boyfriend is cheating on you with a nurse at the hospital.
Oh, my God.
So that was the first thing that happened when I was 8 years old.
What did Anne say?
Was it right? And then she smacked you and threw the bread at you?
Pretty much. She came into my face and she says, what are you talking about? So it was information that was given to her at an important time in her life, which I started, to realize that after years and years and years of doing this, that it is about the information. So I gave her the information. She called my mother, and of course that didn't go very well. But the point was, they did break up. And then they got back together and she married him.
Oh.
Was there a nurse that he talks about?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so that was verified.
Oh, that was completely real. That's the whole thing. Mm-hmm. It happened when I was 8, never thought about this, nothing like this at all. And, the dead people thing was another dynamic because I was
fill her up, ladies.
Because I was so skeptical. And when that happened, oh my goodness, that was the mid-90s. I had been stalked by someone. I was working as an actress. I moved out to Los Angeles, having done a lot of stage and TV in the Midwest. And I came out and there was this guy that basically became a sort of a friend at first. And then I realized he had a con going on. So that dynamic of hearing a dead person warning me about this con artist was crazy. I mean, I went to therapists, doctors, clergy, everybody, because I had no idea what that was. It was the idea of talking to the dead. Oh, talk about a skeptic.
Right.
I was so skeptical. And I was snarky about the whole thing. Like, oh, please. But it really saved my life.
How did that, just tell us a touch about how that saved your life. And, of course, those are the crazy stories.
Well, that's what makes the memoir so good.
And you have to read it.
But the dynamic was, he really was a con artist, and he had been giving me gifts. And when I this was just at a local coffee shop. And when he gave me the gift, I wondered why. Well, I had been looking pretty sad. A couple of my friends had just died, and it was a time in my life where I was grieving about something. So he gave me a pair of gloves, and I tried to put them on, and I just took them off, and I just felt, no, these are not for me. And I heard, they're not yours to wear. And I thought, my God, what's that? And I started to listen, and I heard, why don't you go to the place that he's saying that he's living and check it out? So I went right up the street to Eureka, and there was only one place where a barista boy could possibly be living in that house. And I looked at the mail, and it was Carl and Evie Greenberg. And I thought, this is weird. The house looks boarded up. So I called the number, back in the days with the white pages.
Right.
And a woman answered who happened to be their daughter. And she said, well, no, nobody's trying to buy this house, and nobody's been living in it, except there was a young man that squatted in the house and took my parents' belongings.
Huh.
And that was it.
And he was the guy.
He was the guy.
Did they arrest him?
Actually, I had to work with law enforcement after he had made things very clear that he was going to be a problem. And they did put him in jail.
Wow. So you have two different gifts. So you have this ability to see things going on that are not right in front of you.
Right,
And
the
you
psychic
also
part.
have this ability to connect with people from the other side.
Yes. And because I was so skeptical, I had to really, excuse me, I had to really educate myself. So I was curious. I had to be curious because it was as though, did I want my ego to act as if it knew more than it really did? Because that's what was happening.
Wow. Well, that's it.
And I met you around that time too.
Yeah, early in the early days.
Yes, really.
When did you two meet?
It's probably 28 years ago.
Early 90s, yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as you were discovering that second gift,
Yes.
that's when you two met.
Yes. And I had the good fortune to be in the writing class where Marla wrote her amazing memoir called The American Psychic, and you can get it
Not
on
to be
Amazon
confused with
and
American
Sure.
Psycho.
Right.
Well, that's
Very
what's
different.
great.
It's a
People
spiritual
think about
journey
it.
from the heartland to Hollywood, which it's really interesting. So I heard the not the truncated version, but the elongated version over maybe it's 7 years it took you to write that or more.
It did take me 7 years, and it was, thank goodness for Minda's writing class, but I kept going in and out of the class, and then I thought, well, I don't know whether I really want to finish it. And it was Minda who basically said, come back into class and finish the book. Let's
None
get
of
it
us
out there.
wanted to write or read our stories because we were like this, listening
So
to
tell our
Marla's
audience
stories.
about Minda.
Minda's a brilliant, first of all, she's my fun guru. So
Last
I have
name?
to say that. Her name is Minda Burr Jewelry. She's a jewelry designer. She's amazing. She's fun. Again, my fun guru, first and foremost. She's the most loving, giving, nurturing friend and writing teacher that you'll ever want, because she's doing memoir classes now, but at the time, more than 7 years ago, we were in class for 7 years together. Those were, it's creative writing, and everyone wrote what mine was on hormones. Yes, you can use your hormones as an excuse. Are your boobs touching your... It's like that. It's very funny. Or
I love that.
But Marla was writing this, and we had people writing cookbooks, and there was about 11 of us because it was a very intense class.
So
but literally, we didn't want to hear anything other than Marla's, because all of us were like, no shit, really? All right, no, back it up. So we had to tear it apart, because 9 out of 10 people can be skeptics in this area.
Believe me, because I was such a skeptic, I completely understand. So when I started looking for help, it was the U.S. military psychic spies, the remote viewers, that became my rock and my salvation, basically. Thank God.
The U.S. military psychic spies. Now, who are they?
Well, they were called remote viewers, and it was a faction of, they're still called remote viewers, a faction between the 60s and the 90s studies where men and women who'd been pulled out of various situations in the military were pulled together with this in this project, Stargate, in order to be able to utilize this controlled remote viewing protocol that was developed by Ingo Swann, who was a psychic, and Stanford Research Institute was involved in it. So I just thank God I found them because they really helped me understand. And this is the whole thing about understanding what psychic abilities are. It's the ability to access information. It's as simple as that. And even talking to the deceased loved ones that we all are so connected to. That to me is all about love. And it really is about being able to access that information for someone's highest good, whether it's working for law enforcement, whether it's about the grief-stricken, or what I'm doing right now, which is really addressing generational trauma within family dynamics.
Interesting.
Yeah, I read a bit about that in the essays that you're working on, which is something else. And I know you're touring, or have you still been touring with Tom Campbell?
Well, before the pandemic, I'm still working with Tom Campbell in various teleconferences and things, and who is a physicist. He was developing NASA defense missile systems at the same time that he was involved with Bob Monroe. And Bob Monroe, the Monroe Institute, is the largest expanded school for expanded states of awareness. So that's in Virginia. And he was developing the binaural beats with another wonderful engineer by the name of Dennis Menerich. And Bob Monroe and Tom developed the protocol of binaural beats called hemisync. And that is how a lot of us, and especially even the military, because they flew into work at the Monroe Institute. And it holds the brain and balances it between that corpus callosum in a way that gives your brain the ability to access more information without the use of drugs.
Wow.
So that's been part of my training. It's been part of the work that I do. And of course, I encourage other people to do the same thing.
So what do you tell people who say, it's not that I don't believe in psychic ability, I just don't believe that once somebody dies, they still, are with us?
Well, it really is something that you need to have an experience yourself. I've been working with Dr. Jeffrey Mishlev on his program, New Thinking Aloud. And Jeffrey just won the Bigelow Institute of Consciousness essay contest. He won the grand prize of $550,000.
Wow.
And his paper, his whole experience, and lots of video, it's a really wonderful piece of art that of his own essay. But he had an experience when he was a young child, actually talking to a deceased relative. That changed his life. Mm-hmm. So, quite frankly, people won't get this unless they get curious or if they've had an experience themselves. Mm-hmm. It's really about your own personal experience.
Yeah. I mean, I was sent to somebody. They said, oh, she's amazing. She can, speak with the dead, and you have to go and see her, and she'll change your life. And and I went with an open mind, and I was like, I don't really know a lot of dead people.
Yeah.
I haven't really, luckily, at this time in my life, which was probably 5 or 6 years ago, I hadn't really lost very many people, and very few who were close to me, which is a very lucky thing. Mm-hmm. So I just sort of went and I said, does anybody want to talk to me?
Hey there.
And she just sort of, said, I'm there's somebody with an M, there's an M, and I said, well, my grandmother Mary, no, it's not Mary. And I said, my grandpa Marty, no, it's not Marty. And I just thought, well, this is kind of, because she could have just grabbed on,
Sure,
right?
right,
And said, yeah, it's Grandma Mary.
Right.
And she says she misses you. And I was like stumped for who it could be. And then I said, my mom's closest friend, Marion, passed away. And she said, that's who it is. Mm-hmm. And she's here right now. And that really affected me. And she said, I could record the whole thing. And,
mm-hmm.
So while I was there and in the moment, I was, moved by it. But when I came home and I listened to it, I felt like everything she had said was just sort of pulled from what I was giving her. Does that make sense? I felt like I had been conned.
Well, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Even though it seemed so real, because she was like, no, it's not your grandmother. No, it's not your grandfather.
Sure.
There's someone else or someone else. And when I offered up, my mother's friend, who was someone very, very close to me, I was like, she didn't. I didn't say here's someone who's very, very close to me. Although my eyes did water and that sort of thing happened. So, and then I was like, well, now I don't know if it's real or not. So,
well, I think that part of it. I think that the pandemic really helped with this in a weird way, because I love doing groups. I love doing large groups, small groups. But during the pandemic, I just worked all over the world by phone, and I don't see anybody. So I'm. You could think about, picking things up in people's voices, but why waste your time?
Right.
The only thing that I want to do, because I do talk to my clients about, you really have to intention information for your highest good. And then it is revealed. And it might be something, this is interesting, it just popped into my head. You might be amused by this. So it's not a dead person, but when I was literally launching this book in my hometown of Bedford, Pennsylvania, I did an event at the local, very swanky hotel that's been there for years. I mean, it's got a lot of history, and lots of dead people that were running around. And I had 135 people there. There were lots of circles of tables and everything. It was so great to see people. And I saw a guy that I had made out in high school with, and I was like, hi, Terry, how are you? It's so nice to see you. And I looked at him and I went, you know what? I'm really sorry. Something's going on with your business where, it's fraud, and there's money, and it looks like it starts with insurance, but you're in trouble. It's like, you're in trouble, Terry. And I actually just heard from him a couple of weeks ago. And he said, do you remember when you talked to me at the event? I mean, that was back in September 2018. And I said, of course I remember. I said, I've got people still asking me about that, about when I talked to you. And he said, well, I've been so embarrassed. And he said, I took that information back into my law firm, and basically one of my associates said, you know what? We should probably get a forensic person in here. There was a woman that had been working for him who embezzled $830,000.
Oh my God.
And he was just so embarrassed about it that he didn't want to tell anybody. But he finally got me on the phone, because I guess I'm supposed to be at my reunion this weekend, but I'm not.
Oh my God.
But the reason I'm telling you this is like, that was back then in 2018. I've got a case that I worked on for law enforcement with a dead woman, who basically, these guys that I saw are in jail getting ready for their trial. But I saw that back in 1997. That dynamic is, if I was sitting around waiting to be right, this would not be the career that I would want to be.
That's very interesting.
I mean, my God, I'm just giving the information.
Yeah.
Just giving it.
That's amazing.
Wow. Well, I have good experience because Marla sent me to somebody. I'm not going to, you know what? These episodes are short, so we can know so much about each other, but we're going to have you back for the second episode. So before we leave this first episode, and then I'll tell you my story that's after that, if you had one woman that you wanted to, this is one of Kat's Quickies questions at the end of every episode, who would you want to give a toast or a shout out to? One woman in your life who inspires you. It does not have to be a family member, someone. It's
it's really clear to me. My memoir is about telling the truth, and I remember Oprah basically saying at the Golden Globes that to tell your truth is one of the greatest things that you could do, and she just had on Viola Davis. And because Viola's memoir just came out, I think it's called In Being Me or Finding Me, and I just listened to their interview on Netflix, and I am so touched because Viola's memoir puts all of our ideas about life and what we can do, it puts it on a tilt. And I'm just so moved by her vision, her passion.
Wow.
And I'd like to shout out to Viola.
Shout out Viola Davis.
Viola.
We'll see you next time.
1016 Entertainment.